In this video, I'll be talking about depression on the spiritual journey. This is something that I know that impacts a number of people, something I have suffered with myself and still do from time to time, and it can really make this path difficult. But in this video, I want to help you understand what's going on below the surface. Why do you get these difficult, low type of feelings? Once you gain awareness around this, you can really start to move through them easier, more smoothly. I'll also be sharing with you a couple of methods, things that you can do to help you kind of transition through them smoother, so you don't get stuck there. So before we get into the video, I'd like to say that if you're new to the channel and you are trying to change your life and evolve, I'd like to welcome you to subscribe, and remember to hit the bell notification so you're notified every time I upload a new video. So without further ado, let's get into this. Spiritual awakening and depression. So like I've just said, this is something that impacts a lot of people. And I know how bad it is, I know how much it kind of sucks. The reason I feel this happens at the beginning of the journey is because you've woken up, right? You've had this awakening, you've started to see through a lot of things, you've started to realise there's some greater truth. With that insight comes a lot of greater awareness around yourself and around the way that you've been living and who you are. As you begin to look at your own life, you start to see a lot of things that maybe you had been doing unconsciously. A few examples: maybe you've been in a relationship which wasn't serving your highest good. Maybe you attracted that relationship into your life based on some past wounds. It's a very common dynamic we see in unconscious relationships. Or maybe you have a certain career, or you've been studying in a certain area, and now you realize that you were just kind of conditioned into that. Maybe your parents kind of pushed you into that, or whatever. It wasn't really what your heart wanted. But you've spent so many years and time and energy wasted on these people in relationships, or wasted pursuing the wrong path, that you now come back and just see how much time and energy you've wasted, and that gets you down. I mean, we're talking about decades in most instances. This is how much time and energy we've wasted. And that can get us down. As a natural part of this kind of awareness around these ways we've been living, there has to be a grieving process as we start to let go of the relationship or the job or the education or whatever it was. There's a natural grieving process. This is what humans go through whenever there's some kind of loss. It's natural. That grieving process is you grieving the loss of your ego, of that person you thought you were. Usually you think of grieving when someone dies, but there is a kind of a death. It's a death of the old self. You need to grieve that. And that is a challenging time for a lot of people. Your life isn't going to go in the way that maybe you had once thought it was. You're going to have to find a new way to live, a new way to be, a new way to direct your whole life journey potentially. That's scary. This stuff gets very, very overwhelming and makes people sad and depressed. You can almost feel lost. Like, what am I going to do now? Spent all these years with this person. I can't just leave them now. You may have kids, or you may be married, or whatever. And something you may also realize as a byproduct of seeing through all this stuff is that you can't turn back. Sometimes we realize this stuff and we think, oh shit, I want to go back. I wish I didn't know. I wish I could just turn back. But the problem with this journey is it's really a one-way system. Once you've woken up, you really can't go back, because you know in the back of your mind you're living a lie. So you're almost trapped. You're in it. It's like this slippery slide. It's not that makes it sound bad. Let's say it's like the rabbit hole. But the rabbit hole, you can't turn around. There's not enough room for you to turn around. You've just got to keep going deeper and deeper and hope that wherever you come out at the other end is something greater than what you were living. But naturally, this is difficult to kind of process and go through emotionally. It brings up a lot of stuff. And this can also lead us to see so many contradictions in life. So you've had some realizations about oneness and unconditional love and how universe is all magnificent and love. But you also see how you have to live in this world. You have to pay your bills. You still have to have relationships. You still have to see certain people, maybe people you don't like. You still have to do certain things. You have to still live life. Maybe you have a business and you still have to kind of push the business forward, and you have competitors and you're thinking, how can I have competition when I'm all about oneness and love? So there's a lot of contradictions. This again can really kind of get you confused and depressed, because you need to kind of try to integrate these higher truths that you now are realizing and these human parts of us. You're still human. You still got to pay the bills. And this integration phase is challenging. You're trying to make new sense of reality and where you are. That again, because it's so difficult, can get you emotionally very stuck and feeling down. And this starts to create a lot of resistance within. Something I've heard said before, and something that I kind of resonate with, it's almost like your psyche has become a battleground between your true self, the authentic self of who you really are, and this old ego self. And this is going on inside you. All these emotions are being brought up from the past, all these beliefs and conditioning and all this stuff is going on. And you're just trying to wake up at the same time. This true self is trying to express itself fully through you, but there's so much limitation to its expression. That's resistance. That's this internal battle that's going on inside. Again, that ain't pleasant. That's going to get you down. And really what's happening is on this journey is that there's expansion and contraction. When you first wake up, it's usually expansion. You feel good. You realize all these truths and you start to maybe see things more clearly. That's expansion. You feel good. Unfortunately, the journey ain't all expansion. Usually, there's a contraction phase afterwards. That's the ego fighting back. In that contraction phase, you feel like shit. All these emotions from the past, things you had suppressed or tried to ignore, starts to come to the surface. You can't help it. All that pain from the past needs to be integrated. And that is really what this first stage of moving through this depression entails, is integration, is to find out all the stuff that you had been suppressing and ignoring, because all of that stuff has a lot of pain, fear, sadness attached to it. So as you begin to reintegrate that through, say, shadow work, I have a video on shadow work which I'll link up here, but as you begin to reintegrate all of that stuff, you're going to feel down. Because a lot of this stuff is like perceivably negative stuff. But until you make it a part of who you are, you're going to still be suffering and you're going to keep being at war with yourself. Wholeness is the name of the game, as I like to say. One emotion in particular which can really cause you a lot of problems is anger and aggression. I actually have a video on this. It's the last video I made, how to access warrior energy, so check that out if you want to know more about this. But anger and aggression is an emotion that many of us suppress. Really because society and culture has kind of made it something very negative. Well, it's quite a destructive emotion when it's not expressed in a healthy way. Because it tends to be so destructive, we have learned to suppress it. Aggression, when it's suppressed, gets projected out onto other people. So we have outbursts, we get triggered easily, we have resentment. But worse than that, we act it in on ourselves. Aggression acted in on yourself leads to depression. You're almost attacking yourself. Understand that. So a big part of integration work is integrating your split off aggression and anger. That on its own will help you move through the depression much easier. And the final thing, the final point, the final exercise that you can do to help you move through quicker is simply detachment. Something that you've probably heard. It's to simply watch the experience, watch the emotions as they are flowing through you, the thoughts, all of them. It's not easy. It takes practice. The key to this is not to get identified with the high state. So when you're in that expansive state and you're feeling good, which you may experience from time to time, you're feeling great, don't get caught up in it. Don't believe it. If you don't get identified in the expansive state when you're feeling good, you'll be less likely to get identified in the low state. Because it's just like this. It's like a roller coaster. It's up and down. But if you really get attached to the high state, then when the depression comes, you're going to be sucked down. You're going to be feeling like shit. Just simply be that awareness that experiences whatever has happened without judgment. You don't judge the good stuff. You don't judge the bad stuff. You just live it. You just do your best. And you really start to kind of master your emotions. That's a big part of this journey. Something I'm big on, emotional mastery. And then the ups and downs of life just don't bother you anymore. Then you find this kind of homeostasis in the middle. Peace. This is it. Peace. Peace. This is what we want. Okay, so I think that's everything that I have to talk about in this video. If you have anything to add about your own journey, maybe you've had some dark, depressing times. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you've just been kind of excelling and growing and evolving like this. Some people do. It's quite rare, I think, because the ego will always fight back. But whatever you're going through, if you have any questions, make sure you hit me up because I am really interested to know your experience as well. But that is everything I have to talk about. So if you did enjoy the video, if you could please go ahead, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone if you think they need to hear the message, subscribe to the channel, remember to hit the bell notification, and until next time, remember to keep living free and being free.